the name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back. Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
Wham! Kazam! First try. Why so serious?
He's a fast killer.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
I'm drinking pump. I've been drinking green tea all goddamn day.
I don't know. I have a bad feeling about this.
Hello, everybody. You are listening to the Good Day for a Movie podcast. Alongside me, as always will be, Tate, and our secret co-host, whose identity will not be revealed. Fellas, how we doing? I'll tell you what, it is a good day for a movie because we have experienced the earliest snowfall that I have ever seen in my lifetime.
Cold today.
Yeah, not great. It was like 90 degrees 2 days ago.
Yeah, 100 over the weekend, and then a quick snow. Earliest snow we've ever gotten here. You know, yeah, it's a good day for a movie.
Yeah, I mean, when it's cold outside and you literally don't want to move out of bed, is there a better time for a movie than that, anonymous co-host?
Yeah, it's a pretty good time for a movie.
For sure. All right, so you guys are probably wondering what this podcast is about. Well, movies, obviously. But we have, in our opinion, a unique spin on things. At the beginning of each episode, we're going to come in, we're going to introduce the movie, we're going to kind of bullshit a little bit, just kind of like what we're doing now. And then, through the magic of podcasting, we'll be back in just a few moments to give you our thoughts on the movie, and we hope that you watch along with us and reach out on social media, let us know what you thought. We'll drop all the social media handles at the end of the episode. This episode, we don't know who's going to start.
Yeah, this is the first one we're about to find out who's starting.
Nobody knows what the movie is yet, and nobody even knows who is going to be picking the movie.
We are about to have Siri pick who goes first. So I'll be 3, because 3 is my lucky number. Jacob, you're 1. You're 2.
Always 2.
Whatever Siri decides, that person goes first, and then we're just going to stick to that rotation from here on out. So, Siri, pick a random number between 1 and 3.
The answer is 1.
Shit. Let's go, baby. I knew it. I mean, I absolutely knew it. I almost said his name. Wow, that was close.
Yeah, watch it there.
Tate did earlier.
Oh, I did?
He did. So you're going to hear a bleep. So I might as well just say it again because you're going to hear another bleep. The last thing he wanted was for me to pick the movie.
It is true.
Well.
All right, Jacob. What movie we got?
We're going to watch a movie. So the main reason we're watching this is because the star of the movie, the main actor, passed away just a couple weeks ago. Chadwick Boseman.
Oh.
This movie is it's a chronicle of James Brown's rise from extreme poverty to become one of the most influential musicians in history. Get on up. Like I said, starring Chadwick Boseman.
That's what it's called?
No. Well, it's called Get On Up.
Get On Up?
Yep. It's on HBO Max for those watching at home. Dan Aykroyd is in it. Viola Davis. Nelson Ellis. It's directed by Tate Taylor. And I actually don't know a lot of Tate Taylor's filmography. But The Girl on the Train, I've heard good things about that movie. I've also heard good things about The Help. That's another movie he directed. That's about it. He's only got 8 titles to his name.
Hey, hear this. Drama, music, and musical.
Well, unlikely this is going to be a musical. It's probably...
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. If it does end up being a musical, it's going to be difficult. A couple hours,
But come on, Chadwick Boseman, man.
This sounds great.
I'm trying to remember what's the singer's name? James Brown.
Yeah, James Brown.
Whenever I think of James Brown, I think of what was that movie? Undercover Brother. That was such a good movie.
Wow.
So this will be a good serious twist of Undercover Brother.
Yeah. Oh, I should add, this movie came out in 2014. But so...
Where was he at in his career with this? Like, was he...
This is one of his first ones. I think he had done 42, and I think he'd done Draft Day before this, but Let's see here. I'm scrolling through IMDb right now.
Movie.
No
my
baseball
God.
movie.
For a second, I
Let's
thought you were
see.
going to say Black Panther.
So he was in a lot of TV, but just kind of bit parts, like pretty much background characters. He was in The Express, which again I haven't seen, but I've heard really good things about. And he actually plays for all the local Denver Broncos fans here in we're recording in Fort Collins, Colorado. He played Floyd Little, Hall of Fame running back for the Denver Broncos back in the day, and The Express from 2008. But even after that, he was pretty much just in bit parts, and then The Kill Hole, 42, Draft Day, and then Get On Up. So that was a quick rise to stardom from Chadwick for sure.
Lovely.
So
All
yeah,
right, well, let's do it.
Wait, did you say Draft Day?
Yeah,
Was that
Kevin Costner,
you said
the
Floyd
Browns.
Little?
No, he played Floyd Little in The Express.
Oh.
He played Vontae Mack. Vontae Mack, no matter what,
Okay.
in Draft Day.
Okay.
How long is it? What's the length we're looking at?
Get On Up is 2 hours and 19 minutes.
Not bad.
Not too bad.
Little bit of hypocrisy there.
Yeah. Well, pre-show recording before we started, I vetoed anything longer than 2 hours. I didn't even look at the time because this is the only movie that I had on my mind. But guess what? It doesn't freaking matter because I won.
Means you would have vetoed anything you
Card
picked.
late.
No,
2 hours
I
late.
wouldn't have. We are gonna have a veto rule at some point. We just don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, it's when
I have
picks
my veto rule.
a bad movie.
It's when one of you picks a Disney movie and I just
Whoa, okay.
Oh, don't throw
Okay.
Disney under the bus.
I will be picking Disney movies in the future, just so everybody knows. But let's
Alrighty.
throw it to the break. On the other side, we'll be back
Get
with
on
a
up.
review of Get On Up. Yeah.
Jeez.
You special. Your mama's a no-account fool. Daddy too. But you ain't gonna be. One day, everybody gonna know your name.
James, man.
So you want to be a singer?
Oh, no, sir. What I really want to be? Mechanic.
You got a problem?
You do music?
The only thing keep me sane in here.
He's a showstopper. It's a miracle.
Really? Maybe me and you could work on a little harmony together.
Sarah, get down here.
She coming, Mama. She coming. Look at these people, James. When is it gonna be when we up there?
We'll be back in 10. Right now.
What?
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, get up.
What's wrong, Basil?
You can't play that like you told us. It doesn't work musically.
Doesn't sound good.
Get up.
Doesn't feel good.
Get up.
If it sound good and it feel good, then it's musical.
You're entering a game here where the rules are already set out.
I'm just a street kid from Augusta, Georgia. Now, tell me what you see. Mr. President, I want to go to Vietnam. We got to bring a super heavy funk to the cats over there. Are they shooting at us? They trying to kill James Brown today. You want to go down and hit you as the man and kill the funk? Stop! When I hit that stage, the people better be ready. Especially the white folk. Hit it!
Every man in this band walk taller because they with James Brown.
Are we done, Mr. Bird?
I'm afraid not, Mr. Brown.
I say, are we done?
I think we got more funk than the trunk.
The star of the show. Hard
Open up your ears.
Mr. Dynamite.
Man's a genius.
James Brown. Good God. Get up. Get on up.
All right. The movie is over. We finished it. Get On Up. What'd you guys
Get
think?
on up. I liked it. I think, I don't know. There's a couple things. I'm not sure I loved how much they jumped around, like the timeline. I felt like that was kind of confusing. Felt like it was going back from his childhood to like his teenage years to like his older self. and it was jumping around a lot, and it was kind of hard to follow for a little bit. But that's one main thought.
I definitely agree. I had that written down in my notes. I think what kind of threw me off at the beginning, the pacing was very strange. It was kind of, you didn't quite realize that it was going to fully jump around the entire time. And it was just kind of, it wasn't that it was super fast paced. It was that it was just oddly paced. Like some things kind of, you're like,
yeah,
well, this is kind of taking a little while. And then all of a sudden you'd be in Vietnam for like 2 minutes. And then you just never went back to Vietnam.
So there's like a lot of family stuff that I think they skipped over or they didn't touch on. There's things like when the band was breaking up and like the record label was like telling him that he couldn't be the, what was it? The
scene with the record deal where
like that seemed like
they were the famous Flames, and then they changed to James Brown and his famous Flames. Yeah, I mean that's.
It seemed like they were the famous Flames. Like they kind of made it seem like it was just they just jumped really quickly. He was like at one point it was like we're the famous Flames, and then the next scene they had a record deal, and he was like you're no longer the famous Flames. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that definitely kind of goes into like the whole pacing thing where it was. Well, that seemed really important. Like, why are we not getting more of that? And like, I would have liked to see that whole meeting between them, because I don't know if maybe that was a decision by the director because he didn't want us to necessarily see James fight for the band, even though that is what the end thing ended up with. But at the same time, it still did feel like James was like, well, it is because of me, which it was. Fair enough.
Yeah,
but
it felt like halfway through the movie, like I didn't really feel like I knew who James Brown was. Like,
yeah, and I didn't know who any of the supporting characters were either, which is a problem.
Yeah, that all kind of felt hard to follow. So I think the timeline and the way they broke it up in showing all the scenes was not my favorite part about it. I think, like on a positive note, I think the acting was incredible.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Chadwick Boseman, this is really where he's getting into his full acting chops that he shows off later in his career and all the Marvel movies, and then in Defy of Bloods too, that Spike Lee movie that just came out on Netflix. This is really the kind of beginning of that. There was a little bit of that there in the sports movies 42 and Draft Day, but like with 42, sure, he was playing Jackie Robinson, but a lot of it was about the moments and whatnot. In this movie, it was more of he was trying to portray the emotion through James Brown, like everything that he was going through, without saying it necessarily. Yeah. So he had a lot of like facial expressions, and you can kind of you could see it in his eyes.
Yeah.
Person to be named later. What did you think about this? I should say person to be named never.
I think one thing I appreciated, and I don't know if it was screenwriting or directing about it, autobiographical movies, is that the category, I guess?
Yeah, more or less. It wasn't. It
just
probably
biography.
It wasn't. Yeah, just
biography. Yeah. They tend to be stories from point A to Z, like born or childhood. To
like it made me think
adulthood.
of like Walk the Line almost.
Yeah.
Walk the Line. Even to me, like pretty much any biographical movie is a linear story.
Yeah.
And I think it didn't click until just halfway to me that going back and forth from his past to different parts of his life, it didn't seem to be points in time based, but theme based, where it bring up his mother, and then his mother is visiting him backstage. People are turning on him, and he is seeing himself as this
kind of person that doesn't need anybody else.
This standalone person that everyone should follow. Like there are these kind of pivot, but I totally agree with you. The first half of the movie, it was very jumbled and it was very inconsistent, and I was very lost the first third, absolutely. But one thing I'm really curious, and my phone's restarting right now, so I can't look it up. But did Chadwick Boseman actually sing?
Because I looked it up. He did all the dance moves, obviously, but he sang some parts. I'm guessing that the parts that he did sing were, because it said that he sang some parts, so I'm assuming the parts that he did sing were the parts that there wasn't a James Brown audio track of, because everything else was like actual James Brown stuff, kind of like how Bohemian Rhapsody was. But I'm assuming there are like some things there where, like in the recording studio where he was just kind of riffing by himself. I'm assuming that was probably Chadwick Boseman. But then anytime on stage or like the actual recording of songs,
you could tell his lips were off from the actual music.
Yeah.
Especially in that very last song.
I was about to.
It was pretty obvious.
Well, and I looked it up like halfway through the movie just to see how many like albums he had, and he had 16 live studio recorded albums. So they had a lot to work with to put this movie together. So
sure.
I think that they were,
I was able to kind of like play it off because I definitely noticed that in the last scene as well, where the lips were definitely off from the sound. But I was like, in my own like little head canon, I was like, well, no, I mean, that's just because we're hearing what the audience is hearing, and the audience, like that audio is a second behind what is actually coming out of his mouth just from the speakers.
Yeah, I said obviously, I should say it didn't click until that last
For sure.
scene. The last scene was when I was like, okay, I don't think Chadwick Boseman's.
it was definitely on my mind, I think, throughout the whole movie, but that last scene definitely clicked for me.
Well, and not to compare and contrast, but that was one reason why I respected Walk the Line so much, was that Joaquin Phoenix actually sang.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why
Johnny Cash isn't like a vocally gifted
right.
singer.
And that's why that Oscar debacle of Rami Malek winning for Bohemian Rhapsody is just, like I said, a debacle, because he didn't sing. I mean, yeah, he acted that very well.
In Bohemian Rhapsody, he didn't sing?
No.
None of those songs?
No, they used all of Queen's. Like, they just used the Queen recordings, which makes sense. No, nobody really has the voice of Freddie Mercury. But, and then a year later, Rocket Man comes out and Taron Egerton sang every single word of every single song of that. And he didn't even get nominated for an Oscar, but he won the Golden Globe. The Oscars, what a sham. Good thing they're not happening in 2020. One good thing came from COVID.
More later.
It's a good thing that they have a third set of nomination cards just to make sure everything goes smoothly.
Yeah, because that's the problem.
That's the problem.
Anywho, back on this, when you were talking about like the themes of it all, like over the course of it, I thought that was like, when you just said that, I didn't even think about it during the movie, but like the interesting aspect of him kind of when he's a kid, obviously all of the like racial stuff going on then, like that boxing scene was weird to watch, but
yeah, that was a rough one.
And then it goes to like his teenage years where it's kind of like, or like when, I guess when he was up and coming, and it was like all of these like white crowds that were just like jamming to his music, and he was kind of like a little thrown off by it, but then at the very end, I don't know if you guys kind of noticed, it clicked with me in the last scene, but like when he was sitting there pausing and like staring at the crowd, like it was a completely mixed crowd. And I was kind of like, maybe that's like a theme of.
Yeah, for sure. And
theme.
like,
I don't know if they went for that, but.
I think they definitely did, because I mean, they kind of touched on that. Like, I guess it was the scene before where he went up to the other guy's house and we're talking about it, and we're like, how far have we made it? White people are fixing our pool now?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that was definitely present, and
yeah. But that was, I did think that was cool. I didn't even think about it until you said the word theme, and I was like, oh, I guess there was a theme throughout like the periods of time.
Much more, and granted, I think it was
that they did a good job of showing
in the second half because the actual time differences.
Yeah, you could tell the difference between what type of James Brown we got.
Yeah, there was so much
how
development
he was dressed
and
makeup.
That boy in that third scene or whatever to the movie to the halfway point and on.
Okay, so maybe you guys might disagree with this, but like when he was a kid, I felt like showing all the kids or him as a kid, like those scenes, I felt like I barely made the connection of how that impacted him later in life. Like he clearly had a very rough childhood upbringing with like his mom leaving and like his dad basically being abusive and ditching him, and he had to grow up in like the whorehouse or whatever that was.
Yeah, I think it's
and like going to jail and stuff like that. Like that was an incredibly hard upbringing, but I felt like it didn't really. Maybe it just translated into him just being a hardworking, tough guy. But
I think it was more of he has the, I don't know, because a lot of the times when kids have like with these broken homes often like struggle with like abandonment issues and stuff like that, and they so often think that no, I am just going to fully do this by myself. Like,
oh, so it just goes back to his whole.
I don't need any of these people. They were never with me. Why do I need these people now that have been with me that I haven't fully realized have been with me?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Well, and it also, once I finished my saying that, I think I realized also that one quote when he was like, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. And if you're moving backwards, you're dying.
Yeah.
No matter what, just keep moving forwards. So I probably.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I think it's both of those things where it's
just kind of gave him that attitude of, I'm on my own, got to keep living, got to keep moving forward. That's the way that life is.
I think it's even part of the hardworking thing, because I'm sure that, not to just fully pretend like I know everything that James Brown was thinking, but a lot of it was probably, well, these people that I'm with haven't had the life I've had, so it's been easier on them, so they don't think they have to work as hard to get where I've gotten. So back to that, if you're not going forward, you're going backwards. If you're going backwards, you're dying. That if he's not continuing to work as hard as he possibly can, he feels like he's dying.
Yeah.
Well, and kind of a triple point.
Triple point. Ooh, I'm excited for this.
Yeah, there's 3. So you're going to have to, someone's going to have to count for me, because I'm going to lose track real quick.
I think I can count that high. I got it.
As far as his timeline goes, especially with true story movies or self-proclaimed, Fargo, that one goes out to you. And biographies, I really appreciate them being accurate, historically accurate. And this one I looked up kind of mid-movie just to make sure that it was and there, I mean, of course you can't be 100% with every time or with every movie, but this movie was actually particularly, the first thing I read on this, is this movie historically accurate? It said, I can't believe this movie was rated PG-13 because his life was more of an R-rated movie. So if anything, this was watered down for what James Brown actually lived with. So for whatever we saw, I bet it was 1,000th of whatever he ever lived. So that's major appreciation.
I got something to come back to point number 1, so keep going with the other points, though, on the accuracy.
I think that was a mix of point 1 and 2. Points being biographies and self-proclaimed true stories being relatively accurate, and 2, an appreciation of James Brown's life. And that was kind of my parallel to Johnny Cash, not them being the exact same, but Johnny Cash had bad father, rough life, wannabe musician, kind of baggage carrying through his life, dragging him down the whole time. That, I mean, that's a good story, but it's also kind of, you appreciate the person. Holy cow, I forgot the third part.
Well, that's all right.
It'll come back to me.
We'll come back to it. I'll go off of your accuracy of it, because I thought it was very interesting. The very first scene when it was like old James Brown walking around through, like, I had no idea what was going on. That entire first scene, I was just like, what's happening? I even remember asking, I was just like, where is it? Like, what's happening? But I Googled it like near the end of the movie when they kind of came back to the car chase at the end. And I Googled how accurate that entire thing was. And it just says that basically, when was this? I don't know when this was written, but this was a Time article that I read, but they're talking about the accuracy of this movie. And they said, after a few years of increasingly bizarre, sometimes violent public outbursts, the self-styled soul brother number 1 became an inmate at South Carolina State Correctional Center. And so they're like on that in 1988, he began serving 6-year sentence for carrying a deadly weapon at a public gathering, attempting to flee police, and driving under the influence of drugs. When he got chased, the cops got called when he reportedly stormed into an insurance company next to his office, waving a shotgun and complaining that strangers were using his bathroom. And I was like, when I read that, I was just like, holy shit, that entire scene was actually legit. Because when we watched it, I was just like, what is this? What are they going for? This isn't, no way this happened. But, so I was actually pretty impressed with some of the accuracy things that I read. And it even was as accurate as to saying like he actually did try and ram police cars with his pickup truck. They shot out 2 of his tires. He drove on the rims of his car for 6 miles. All these crazy things. And it was his second, or that was one of 2 car chases that he got into between 1988 and when he passed in 2004.
I kind of wanted to jump off of what was saying about just how rough of a life he had. But to bring that to that Boston Garden performance where all the people were jumping on stage and the cops were kind of throwing them back in because, well, one, they're probably worried about the safety of James Brown. Also, two, you can't be jumping on stage randomly. But his kind of saying of like, hey, I'm black, you're black. Like, let's treat each other with respect. If you want to hear the rest of the show, then get off the stage and listen, because that's what we're here to do. It is a very cool scene, just how he kind of dealt with that.
I thought it was kind of interesting especially with everything that's going on right now. But when he said that they do the announcement, Martin Luther King was just shot, and how they're canceling everything, and I was just like, wow, that actually they just were showing protests and buildings burning. I was like, that looks like what we're reading in the news today. So it is kind of
the difference between James Brown and the NBA. The NBA is like, no, we're canceling.
Yeah.
And James Brown is like, no, I'm playing.
Yeah. And I thought that the way he handled that situation was, I think that's one of those things, like if that's historically accurate, that's actually how he handled it, I think that's awesome. And
it's still burning from my thing.
Yeah, and he coming back
crying.
He'll get it.
Killing me.
I'll bring up two more. I really enjoyed Viola Davis as the mom. She's the mom that left, or the mom that took care of him? Basically? The mom that left.
Okay.
I thought her performance was good, but it was incredibly heartbreaking. That scene where he sees her picking up the soldier. That was just tough, is the only word to describe it.
I think I read that was historically inaccurate.
Well, it was still tough, and a
It
good
was
performance
still
from Viola
heartbreaker.
Davis.
But
fuck off.
To flip on that, it did say that despite the two, I think it was that scene as well, despite the two not being historically accurate, she did come into his life much more often than the movie depicted. So she was
a better mother than
after he got famous.
We don't know.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of the
So we don't really know her relationship with him.
Yeah, the movie and the story of James Brown and his mother is not doesn't seem to be completely clear from the movie, but
yeah. And then I just saw that, which they didn't really say this though, but that he ended up dying of a heart attack. Well, I guess they said heart failure, but it was a heart attack and pneumonia. I saw, which 73 though. That's a pretty good life.
Yeah, for sure.
Long life.
Especially for what I thought was interesting, because I'm sure, they barely touched on this about all the hard drugs every single rock star or country star, but just big music star did. 73 is a long time to live for all the, I'm sure, blow and everything that they were doing.
I think there's definitely some, the movie did not touch on.
Yeah.
They had that one scene of him rolling a joint looked like, I don't do drugs, so I don't know who that was, but
# not a drug guy, but I have no idea what that was. It was I would guess some sort of fentanyl or something like that.
Meth or something, I don't know, but he was throwing that and it was just, so I think he definitely had a drug problem that they did not touch on, but what rock star doesn't? Anything else?
I remember my third point.
Let's hear it.
It is, the first two was his storyline being that guy saying more rated R than PG-13, historical accuracy. The third part is, and it touched on what you said, James Brown. I really did not know much about him besides the occasional songs that came back up in the movie that I'd say, oh, hey, I heard that song before, and then Undercover Brother. It is so refreshing every once in a while to just learn something new about a person, and in particularly a historical figure that you really don't know much about. And that was, I guess the best word is refreshing, but it was nice. It was fun. And kind of that bounces off of learning about his rough life, and that it wasn't too historically inaccurate.
Yeah, you actually feel like you learned something throughout watching a movie.
Oh, and the one thing that I really actually, now that you just said something about learning about him, that whole scene where he was talking to, what's his name, Craig Robertson, the guy
from The Office,
kind of star now.
Yeah, Craig Robinson.
But, during that whole scene where he was talking about, he was talking to the drummer, and he said, "Drummer, I need you to start on this note or this frame or whatever." and he was talking about everyone else. He's like, you guys need to start on the downside of that, and he was just basically orchestrating how everybody was going to play, and he was like that whole scene, I think, just kind of epitomizes how talented he was just musically, and how like in his whole belief in music is a groove, and music, like, groove is a feeling. He's like, he's like, as long as it sounds good, he's like, you play it, you hear it, as long as it sounds good and it makes you move, gives you a feeling, he's like, that's music.
Let's move on to what everybody's been waiting for, and that would be our final scores. But before we do that, Tate, do you have the kind of aggregate scores for Rotten Tomatoes and whatnot?
IMDb gave it a 6.9 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes gave it an 80%. Pretty good, actually. Better than I thought, Rotten Tomatoes. Metacritic gave it a 71%. So, you want to go first or me?
I don't care.
All right. You go first.
Okay. So, my big knocks on it, again, not sure if it's screenwriting or directing, but the discombobulation for the first 40 minutes was just rough to get through. But I don't know if I'm a serious person or something, but I got into the story when it got into his past. I'll give it can we go Dave Portnoy on it, 7.3 or something?
Out of 100.
Out of 100?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go Rotten Tomatoes.
Well, Rotten Tomatoes percentage.
That's fair.
Let's get into this real quick. Rotten Tomatoes, what it is if so this got an 80%, that means 80% of the people that reviewed it gave it positive reviews. It doesn't mean that that's the total percent. If we're all giving a review, I
thought Rotten Tomatoes was both. They have some critics and some audience.
No, so they do have a critic and an audience, but what it is let's say gives it a 70, I give it an 80, and Tate gives it a 90. That's going to be an average score of 80. That's not what it is.
Yeah.
What it is
how many
if there were 10 of us,
give it a thumbs up.
Eight of us gave
video.
it a 50 or above, then it's a positive review. If then 2 of the people gave it less than a 50, then it's a negative. Then it's then that's at 80%. Make sense?
You sound
well,
like you're an anti-Rotten Tomatoes guy.
No, not necessarily. I mean, I think it's a good judge of whether you should maybe watch a movie or not, but I don't think it's the lo and behold.
A little high.
All right, I think we've earned you enough time here.
Yeah. I would probably give it a 7.2.
Okay, so a 72 out of 100.
I like 7.2 out of 10. I'm gonna stick to 7.2 out of 10.
Deal. 72 out of 100.
Granted, I will say not many biographies or historically accurate films are more than an 8 for me, because it's kind of a tight range. It's you enjoy it, you learn something, it's not mind-blowing, blah 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 blah.
I think actually he's pretty on par, I think, with or the ballpark that I'm going to give. I'm probably just going to go with just a nice old 75 out of 100.
All right, unfortunately, I wrote my number down before anybody else said anything. Right when the movie ended, I wrote it down. And this is going to kill me, but I also give it a 72.
Wow.
Which means I agree.
Yeah, hate to see it.
Hate to see it.
We can agree for different reasons.
I mean, I think we just pretty much agree for the same reasons. But I will say my ceiling on these types of movies is much higher than that. Like for instance, I gave a Rocket Man an 80 out of 100. I really enjoyed that one. But there's some other I like the musical genre type of thing. I think I didn't give Walk the Line a score, but if I were to retroactively without having seen it for a couple of years, I'd give it a 90 or so.
8 out of 10. They can't be higher than an 8. Actually, not even a 7 point.
In your opinion,
you like to make rules.
Yeah.
No, I think I definitely like music movies, and especially the biographies. I love learning about people. And I honestly thought that halfway through this movie, I was like, this is not that great. I was halfway through it, I was like,
holy cow, this
this is going to be a long
one.
2.5 hour.
But it got better.
It got better, and I think just talking it all through afterwards, I think I appreciate it more cinematically a little bit how they did it, because throughout it I was like, I do not like how they're bouncing around, but it was different, so I like that part.
All right,
But
ending question. How did you guys feel about Chadwick Boseman talking to the camera and looking at the camera?
I liked it.
Just quick yes or no.
Yeah.
Hated it.
I'm somewhere right in the middle. It's not my favorite thing in movies. Sometimes I kind of think it's a cheat, but I think the way they did it at times was good. I liked it more when he actually talked to the camera, when he just kind of gave it a wink or a smile, if that makes any sense.
Do you think it gave a little bit of a vibe of that it's just him? He's talking to the camera because he's just like, it's just me.
Whenever I see it now, I get the vibe of post-credit Ferris Bueller's Day Off. What are you still doing here? The movie's over.
Narrator.
You can go home.
There should
now.
be one, and it can be a quote unquote narrator. It could just be the narrator can just be the story. There doesn't have to be a narrator. That was confusing. 2, if you're gonna have a narrator that looks into the screen, it's a comedy movie. It's not another genre.
No, I liked it.
It was that frustrated me,
No,
but it was
liked it.
low key enough to where it didn't bother me. It didn't make it go in the 6s.
I think this movie was different than any other biography I've seen, and I kind of like that fact about it. But yeah, so I like it. Maybe it's because you don't like it, but
I think Chadwick Boseman did great. I think the actors did great. I think the director may have been the only person at fault for it being a lower score for me.
Fair.
Very fair.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for today. If you have thoughts or questions, you can shoot us an email at gd4ampodcast@gmail.com. That's a number 4 in there. You can also follow us on Instagram at gd4. One more time, that's the number 4, gd.movies. Again, gd4gd.movies on Instagram. And we're also on Twitter at gd4gd_movies. Third time, that's the number 4 in there. Again, gd4gd_movies on Twitter. We will catch you at the movies next week.
When you come to the end of the line with a buddy who is more than a brother and a little less than a wife, getting blind drunk together is really the only way to say farewell.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.